Is 86b. A little less than halfway down the page, but we're at 2 dots for Elazar or alpha p. Okay, Rabbi Elazar's opinion, famous for Elazar's opinion, which we've seen numerous times over Masechta Gittin. I would say it's probably the most common debate in Masechta Gittin is the debate between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Meir, Eid Chasima Karti or Eid Mesir Karti. Rabbi Elazar says you don't need to have witnesses sign a divorce. The only reason you do it is because of what we call tikkun ha'olam. If in case the witnesses are moving on or won't be available, it's good to have a document as a proof as well. Rabbi Yehudah says the name of Rav, halacha Rabbi Elazar Gittin, the halacha follows the opinion of Rabbi Elazar. When I mentioned it in front of Shmuel, he says not only Gittin af b'shtaros, also with regular documents. So Gemara says, okay. So it seems to be debate here between Rav and Shmuel with regard to regular documents. The Mishnah says that Eid Mesir Karti is sufficient not only for divorce, but also to collect the ksuba. So it would seem that the concept of Eid Mesir Karti is true not just with regard to divorce, but also with regard to money. So the Gemara says you're right. Rabbi Elazar Tartiyam. Rabbi Elazar said both. And Rav agrees with him only with regard to divorce, but not with regard to monetary transactions. I'm sorry, Rabbi Shimon Levi. Rabbi Levi also said the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar specifically with regard to divorces. Rabbi Yanai Amar, afilu reach haget einbay. Rabbi Yanai says that a divorce that does not have witnesses signed on the document, it's not even a reach haget, meaning there's no smell of divorce here. A kohen could still marry her. So the Gemara wants to know, is he disagreeing with Rabbi Elazar or not? He says Rabbi Yanai less than Rabbi Elazar. He disagrees with in other words, Rabbi Elazar says you don't need divorce witnesses at all. Rabbi Yanai is saying if there are no witnesses, it's not even a smell of a divorce. So the Gemara says, this is what Rabbi Yanai meant to say. According to the rabbis that disagree with Rabbi Elazar, there isn't even a scent of a get. They completely disagree with Rabbi Elazar, and even if she's the wife of Cain, she can go back and eat truma, etc. Rabbi Yehudah. Same thing at Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, the name of her Shlakish, Halach Rabbi Elazar Gittin. Rabbi Yechon says afilu reach haget einbay. Rabbi Yechon says there isn't even a smell of a divorce. Lame Rabbi Yechon less said Rabbi Elazar. Presumably he disagrees with Rabbi Elazar. Hachigamar the Rabbanon afilu reach haget einbay. The rabbis that disagree with Rabbi Elazar, they say that there isn't even a smell of a divorce. Sholach lei Rabbi Abba Zavda Lamori Bar Mara. They asked Rav Huna the following question: Halacha Rabbi Elazar Gittin ein halacha. Does the halacha follow the opinion of Rabbi Elazar or not? Adach. By the time the question got to Rav Huna died. Noch nafsh Rav Huna. Amarle Rav Abreis, Rabba, the son of Rav Huna says, Hachi Amar Abba Mishmei de Rabba. This is what I heard my father say in the name of Rabba. Halacha Rabbi Elazar Gittin. The halacha follows Rabbi Elazar with regard to divorces. Rabbi Seinu Habakim B'Dafar. And the expert rabbis say, halacha mishum Rabbeinu, Amar halacha Rabbi Elazar Gittin. And the rabbis also say, the expert rabbis say, in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, that the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar with regard to getting divorces. Ekadamri, and some say, V'chavreinu habakim b'dvar halacha b'talmidei Rabbeinu mishum Rabbeinu, Amar halacha k'Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Elazar Gittin. The rabbis that were familiar with divorces and the students of Rav also said the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar with regard to divorces. Amar of Chiz, Amar of Chum, Bar Guria, Amar Rav, Halacha Rabbi Elazar Gittin, the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar with regard to divorces. Chenki Yasser Rav, Amar Elazar, Amar Rav, again in the name of Rav, Halacha Rabbi Elazar Gittin, the halacha follows Rabbi Elazar, and indeed I believe that halacha l'maisa we follow Rabbi Elazar. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Get into a bunch of interesting types of divorces. Most of them are written in a pretty funny way. So we have three Mishnayos, I believe, today. We'll get to the third one. Let's begin. Okay, so the first one is there's a bit of a contrast here. The first scenario is relatively easy. Shnayim sheshalchu shnei gittin shavan. There were two men with the same name divorcing their wives with the same name, and they lived in the same city that is on the same river. So both divorces are effectively identical. And what do you think happened? Then it's arvu. They got mixed up. They don't know which divorce is. There was the redhead guy and the black-haired guy, right? That was the only way to differentiate them. And he got mixed up. There's no who's is who's. So what do? Noisin shneim lazu or shneim lazu. You give both divorces to each woman. But if one of the divorces was lost, then the second divorce is invalid because you don't know who do you give it to. Okay, now we look at the document itself. So I brought you yesterday a divorce, and here we have a few interesting scenarios. Okay, so just to contextualize, there's a klal and there's a typhus. We'll see two ways the divorce could have been written. What happened was 5 people wrote a divorce on one piece of paper, and they did it in one of 2 ways. Either they did it as a klal, or they did it as a typhus. What does each one of those mean? Well, it's machlekes, of course. Klal seems to be that they're much more together. They're sort of it's really one divorce that has 5 names in it. Whereas typhus is that there are 5 different divorces on the same document, and maybe they have the same date or something similar. We'll explain in the Gemara. Mishnah is called Masechta Get. Ish plain megarish plainis uplaini plainis. This person is, Reuven's megarish Rachel and Shimon's megarish Leah. The Edom el Mata, the witnesses are signing on the bottom. Kulam Sharon v'inasan lekolachas v'achas. The divorce is kosher, and you give a divorce to each one of the women. The same document, same witnesses is being given 5 times to each of the women, and it's kosher. But let's say there's an individual divorce written for each woman. The Edom Amata and the witness is signed at the bottom as Sha'edim Nikron Imai Kosher. The last divorce, the one that has the witnesses in line, that is the divorce that's valid. The rest of them are not valid. We're now at the Gemara on the bottom of 86b. Okay, so the Mishnah says that you have 2 identical divorces, and they got mixed up. You don't know whose is whose. You give both of them to both women. Montana, whose opinion is this? It's not the opinion of Rabbi Elazar. The Rabbi Elazar, even number 8 in Masira Karti, because Rabbi Elazar says the witnesses testify about the Masira, the giving over the divorce. Presumably, the giving over the divorce must be lishma. It must be for with the right intentions. Problem is, you can't have correct intentions, but you don't know which document belongs to whom. 86b. 4 lines to the bottom of the page. Okay. Last 2 lines, 2 words in the line. Abai Amar, 3 lines down. 3 lines at the end of the page. Abai Amar, I feel the time of Rabbi Elazar, keep me with Rabbi Elazar. The Bar Rabbi Elazar, aim at the Bar Rabbi Elazar, Ksiv Lishma, and Asina Lishma, mi bay. That Rabbi Elazar does not require an Asina Lishma. He only requires Ksiv Lishma because the divorces were written for the correct woman. So the documents are fine. The fact that when you give over the documents, even though you require witnesses, you don't require Lishma. And therefore, even if the witnesses don't know which is the main document, it's fine. The giving over does not need to be the Shema. And hence, if you don't know which document it is also acceptable. Okay, so we have two scenarios in the Mishnah. One is where a klal was written. When a klal was written, everybody, you give it the same divorce 5 times, it's kosher divorce for everyone. The other example is a typhus. You write the typhus and you give it 5 times, it doesn't work. Only the one who the typhus is read with, the witness is signed underneath, that is the only valid typhus. Okay, let's explain. What exactly does this mean? Hechidami klal. In what way did you put them all into one document? Hechidami typhus. In what way is considered 5 separate documents on one piece of paper? So Rabbi Yehudah says, Zman echad l'kulam zehu klal. If there's one date for all 5 documents, that means that it's really one big document. Okay, so it's very simple. You see the divorce that I sent out. You have 5 of those, but each of them doesn't have a date. Only the first one has a date, and the last one has witnesses, and then they're all kosher. However, if each one has each one's a regular divorce, one after another, but witnesses sign the last one, then only the last one's kosher, and not the previous 4. Together, we have 2 rules in the Mishnah: klal and typhus. Okay, klal is a kosher. Basically, you have 5 divorces written on the same paper. If they're written as a klal, then they're all kosher. Take the same paper. Each one of the husbands gives it to his wife 5 times. Right? Now, if it's done typhus, for some reason we treat that as 5 individual documents that are connected. The last one, which has the signatures of the witnesses, presumably, is the only valid divorce. All right. Now, how do you define it? What makes it one big divorce of 5 people, or 5 separate divorces? How do you define that? So we have machlokes here. Rabbi Yehudah says if the date is written on top for all 5 divorces. So if you notice, you look at the divorce yesterday, you'll see the first line of divorce is the date. In this case, the guy probably narrowed the divorce a little bit. Remember, the divorce is supposed to be 12 lines. So he made it a little narrower. And the divorce was written once in the beginning, and the remaining 4 documents, 4 divorces, did not have the date written in them. That makes them one big divorce. Give the same piece of paper 5 times. However, if each one has its own date, then it's 5 separate divorces, and only the last divorce is kosher, or the divorce that has the witnesses on it.
So each one has a date?
If each one has a date, then they're considered 5 separate pieces, and therefore only the one that has the signatures in line is kosher.
If it doesn't have, has a date at the beginning, the witnesses at the end.
Then it's one big divorce of 5 people.
That's kosher.
Yeah, but this is according to Rabbi Yehudah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Rish Lakish disagrees. He has a different definition. Rish Lakish says, "I feel as man echad b'kulan nami have a typhus." Even if there's one date on top, you wrote the date once and you signed witnesses in the bottom. That's still, but there are 5 separate line item, 5 separate divorces. The whole thing is repeated over 5 times. That's considered a typhus, meaning only the last one is kosher. The one with the witnesses is kosher. The rest of them are not. So what's the scenario of klal? That it's one big divorce. Kasav, where he writes in the divorce, I know plenty, Ruvain and Shimon and Levi and Yehudah and Yisachar. Yirash and Shasena, we divorced several wives. I don't know, Rachel, Leah, Rivka, Sarah, and Chava. Okay. So in other words, effectively what Rish Lakish is saying is there's one divorce that has all 5 names in it. Masach Rabbi Yehudah, Abba asked Rabbi Yehudah, the Amar is Malik, Rabbi Yehudah. According to Rabbi Yehudah, the Amar is Malik Zman Echad Kulan Klal, that if there's one date for all 5 documents, that's considered a klal and it's kosher. Okay, so you have the date on top, 5 divorces, witnesses on bottom. Maybe the witnesses didn't realize they only signed the bottom divorce. They didn't realize there were 5 more. Bila Tanya, do we not have a price that says Edim Chasumin al She'elas Shalom Beget Posel? Okay, this is a little complicated. We'll try to avoid discussing this, but just a very vague out. There's a lot of halachas, mostly in Bava Basra. This, I believe it's in it's a Get Pashat actually in Bava Basra. There are sort of a number of features that are done to avoid forgeries. So, for example, if anyone's written a check, you often line out the blank, right?
Right.
I'm not sure you have to do it anymore. I think most banks will realize it, but whatever, I still do it. Yeah, sure, fair enough. You line out the check. So in other words, you fill the line, and this is true with regard to ksuba and with regard to divorces. So if you use a blank template for divorce or ksuba, you're going to line out the rest of the thing, so you can't change anything. Let's say somebody makes an erasure. But
No, I just said.
or on a check, if you change something on a check, I believe is this thing that people do, you sign it. You sign on the erasure. The same is true in halacha. There's an erasure on the document, sign the erasure. You'll also write at the end of the document, you'll write that there was an erasure between lines, this and this, and these are the words that are erased, and these are the words that are replaced. So at the end of the document. Now, if you have a document that says, with greetings to Sam, signed by witnesses, that document's invalid. Because it's very likely the witness is signed with greetings to Sam, and the guy just wrote a document on top. The document said in greetings to Sam, and the guy wrote, "You owe me millions of dollars," with greeting, and he added the with, and then it's documents. So in general, another thing also, for example, is that when you have a document that is true of ksubas, particularly, it's also true of tnoim. If you look at it, you'll notice in the last line repeats something in the document. This way, the guy can't add a condition. You can't add something afterwards because you'd have to repeat something in the document. So they sign underneath the words. They leave no more than one line blank. Then sign for the signature. You'll notice on the divorce that I sent around yesterday. And this way, the guy can't add anything because the last line mentions something from the document. Okay, so similarly, so this basically, if the document is signed with greetings to Sam, the whole thing is useless. So over here also, you have, maybe they just signed on the bottom get, and they didn't sign on the previous four that were written on top of it. They signed greetings to Sam. The Gemara says, okay, lav itmar Allah, Amar Bavu, Ledim Farshim Minei Rabbi Yechanan. So far as it's not a question, Bavu explained Rabbi Yechanan. She'elu posel, v'she'elu kosher. Okay, basically, if the first word of the last divorce was, and vigetza, so b'hachanami dekasabe plani uplani. In other words, in the divorce, it referenced that there was a previous divorce on top. And in the previous divorce, it referenced that there was the previous divorce on top of it until the first document. So because they're all sort of linking each other in, the witnesses clearly they read what they signed. This is before the days of a click here to read and accept. So at least they should.
Yeah.
So they clearly saw that this is not the last document. This is a document that's linked to a previous document, and that previous document is linked to the previous one, etc., until the first document. Okay. Another problem with Rabbi Yechanan was Rabbi Yechanan. The Omer's Malakol Echad Zev Toifus. Rabbi Yechanan says one date for all documents. My area Mishum Toifus. The Gemara here presumes that the 5 divorces were not all written on the same day. If they weren't written on the same day, guess what? They certainly weren't signed on the same day. So you have, I don't know, presumably each divorce is written on a different day. So who cares? It's one document. You have a problem. It's nichtav b'yom v'nechtam b'layla. The divorce has to be signed the same day it's written. Now over here, it's one signature for 5 divorces. So, and if they were the Gemara is presuming that they were written on separate days. We'll soon see. Obviously, they were written on the same day, but for now, they're written on separate days. So they're signed on a different day that they were written. If signing at nighttime is no good on the same day, certainly if you sign it on a different day, it's no good. So it should be no good because it wasn't signed on the same day. He answered Rav Yechanan that no, they were all written on Sunday, first of Shabbos. Okay. Amar Ravina Ravashi. So Ravina says to Ravashi, the Rish Lakish. Now let's go to the second opinion. Again, Rish Lakish says, let's go back to the Mishnah actually. We have Klal and Typhus. Klal, they're both 5 divorces on the same page. Klal works, Typhus doesn't work. Says Rish Lakish, what's a Typhus? Typhus is, even if there's one date and 1 witnesses, it's also called Typhus. What's called Klal, when there's 5 people are all like literally in one document. You have one set of words. I don't know how they managed to fit that one into 12 lines, but let's say they did it. So maybe they made very wide lines,
Even just looking at this, I mean,
The last line is basically empty. That's 2
the
lines.
last line is empty and the top 2 lines are kind of really squashed.
Yeah. Okay. Where are we? Yeah, I think also, yeah. I've seen other divorces. They were actually much wider, so much more stretching of letters, but also a lot more kinuyim. So this one, I think the guy is called Greenfield. He's called Yitzchak and Isaac and maybe a third name. I've seen lists of much more names. Rachel and Rachel and Rochelle. You look at it, the guys' names are listed on. Hold on for a second. Here, if you look, it's online. 3rd line. Anosh Shmuel, Amechona Samuel. I guess that's a German thing. Amechona Siegfried. Apparently, that was his last name. Ben Yitzchak, Amechona Isaac. Yeah, so his father's name was Yitzchak, was also called Isaac. Okay, if you look again on line 6, you have her name. Samuel is probably the last name of her, maybe. Razi Bas Shalom. She was called Razi. Interesting name. Samuel. I don't know. Okay. Where are we here? Okay, so getting back to Rish Lakish. So Rish Lakish says 1 date with 1 signature is still called a typhus. What's considered 1 big divorce? The Kasabay, Hachi, Anu Pliny, Yerushin, Shesenu, Pliny, Uplinus. It says Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehudah, Sachar were divorced wives of Rachel, Leah, Rivka, Sarah, and Chava. Nimtzu, we have a problem. Shtei nashim misgarshis beget echad v'atera amar v'kosav v'loy lo l'chaverta. You have to write 1 divorce. You can't. Each woman gets 1 divorce. You can't write 1 divorce for 2 women. So Gemara says you're right. It was 1 big divorce that had all their names in it together, and then afterwards the hadar cause of Pliny Girish Pliny, Pliny Girish Plinus. So there's 1 divorce that says Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehudah, Sachar divorce Rachel, Leah, Sarah, Rivka, Sarah, and Chava. And then afterwards, there were 5 divorces. Reuven divorces Rachel, and Shimon divorces Leah, and Levi divorces Rivka, and Yehudah divorces Sarah, and Yisachar divorces Chava. So each 5 individual divorces that had followed after the big divorce that had all their names together. That would be the klal that works. Okay.
Trying to say parchment. Who knows?
I'm going to reveal Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, hold on a second. You're telling me that two women can't use the same divorce. But we have another brisa. Somebody gives all his assets to 2 of his slaves. Kanu, they acquire themselves. And they have to free each other. Hold on a second. An emancipation is learned from a divorce. Just like a divorce can't be the same divorce to 2 women, so too you can't give the same emancipation to 2 men, to 2 slaves. So how can it be that he's giving both of his slaves? So Gemara says no, very simple. He's doing this in 2 separate documents. No difficulty. Tani Kav said Rabbi Yehudah. We have a brisa that's supporting Rabbi Yehudah, and Tani Kav said Rish Lakish, a brisa supporting Rish Lakish. Tani Kav said Rabbi Yehudah, a brisa supporting the opinion of Rabbi Yehudah. Chamish Shikosav Masechet Get. 5 people that wrote in a document. Ish Pliny Megarish Plinus. Pliny Plinus. Is Manach and Kulam. You have 5 divorces. You have the date at the beginning and its signatures at the end. The Edim Omata and the witnesses at the bottom. Kulan Ksherin, they're all kosher. all 5 divorces, each guy gives a divorce to his own wife. But if the date is written in each individual divorce on the same piece of parchment, and the witness is signed on the bottom, the one that has the witnesses in line, presumably the last one, is kosher. Okay, this is clearly like Rabbi Yehudah. Rabbi Yehudah says, "Im yesh revach b'neim posel, im lav kosher." If there's space between them, that would be posel. If not, the im lav kosher, she'ein zman of sik, and then because the date does not separate them. So, according to Rabbi Yehudah, the differentiation between the documents is a line, is a blank space. Then we would say the last one's kosher, the other ones are not. But if they were written without any spaces, one literally following the next one, so then we would say that they're all kosher. In other words, Rabbi Yehudah disagrees with the Mishnah and also with Rabbi Yehudah, which is fine, and the Brisa. Okay, Tanya Gav said Rish Lakish. We have a Brisa that supports the opinion of Rish Lakish. 5 people that wrote a klal in a divorce. Oh no, plenty garash. Should say plenty girish, plenty girish, plenty is manach the kulan. You have 5 people written in the same document, and also there's one date for all of them. Va'edam mato, and the witnesses are at the bottom. Kulan ksher, and they're all kosher. And each guy gives divorce to his wife. If each one has its own date, if the witnesses are the one that the witnesses are read with, the one the witnesses are in line is kosher. Okay, just a minor point here. It's interesting because in the scenario of typhus, the Bryce actually says the zman l'kol echad ve'echad. Rish Lakish would disagree. He would say even if it's zman echad l'kulam, even if it's the same date. It's a minor point. The Gemara will raise it in a moment. Meir says af b'she'ein b'neim posel shazman mafsikan. And Meir says that no, the date separates them, and they're considered typhus. 1 second. Okay, what does the Bryce need a scenario where there's a date written for each divorce? He says even if there's one date for each divorce, it's fine. That's the same status as typhus. The difference is that there's no single large collective divorce that precedes the 5 individual divorces. Gemara says, Samara is making an interesting point in Rish Lakish, which is even in a scenario where you have one document that has all the names together, all 5 names, and then each document has all the specifics, but they all have a date, then it's considered a typhus, even though you put them together in the beginning. In other words, according to Rish Lakish, for it to be considered a klal, it has to be that they were not together in the beginning. So they were together in the beginning. There was one large divorce, and then a divorce that follows to each specific woman. But those individual divorces do not have a date on it. Okay, now we get to some interesting scenarios.
Typhus is separate.
They're both really the same thing.
Yeah.
There are 5 divorces written on one document. Okay, there's 2 ways to do this. One is called typhus. In general, the word typhus is a template.
Okay.
If you do it, but over here, it's not what it means. Because over here, there's 5 different templates. There's 5 different divorces in the same paper. If it's done in a way of klal, it's kosher. It's done in the way in typhus, it's not kosher. How do you make a klal? According to Rabbi Yehudah, you put only one date. One set of witnesses. The bottom, that connects the document. That's considered klal, that's kosher, give it 5 times. According to Rish Lakish, that scenario is considered typhus. It does not work. Only the one that the witnesses are in line works. What's considered klal? Klal is where before the 5 divorces, you wrote a big giant divorce. So this divorce is a 6th divorce, which says Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, divorce, is it Rachel, Leah, Rivka, Sarah, and Chava. Now, that's what Rish Lakish says. And even there, Rish Lakish says, and you still have to have only one date. If you have this big collective divorce in the beginning, but each divorce has its own date, also called typhus. Okay, and according to Rabbi Yehudah, typhus obviously is where you use dates for each individual document, and only the last one with the witnesses is kosher. According to Rish Lakish, any of the scenarios we just spoke about would all be called typhus.
Rabbi Eliezer, what does he think? What did he say about the?
Don't ask him.
Don't-
No, there's no really answer. There's no. Okay. Now a few more interesting scenarios. Shnei Gittin shekasim zeh b'tzad zeh. Okay, this is a little bit of a weird one and a little complicated. Okay, so when we call you up for an aliyah, right?
None of the others.
Shut the window over there.
Oh, the sun.
Someone's right in. Thank you.
The sun.
Yeah.
What is that burning orb in the sky?
That's the next one. Okay. Okay, so when we call somebody up for aliyah, we call them, let's say, Reuven ben Yaakov, right? Reuven is the son of Yaakov. But the Greek custom was that meant the opposite. If you called somebody up Reuven ben Yaakov, that means that the son of Reuven was Yaakov. The guy's name is Yaakov. Together? So these are the Greek signatures. It could be that their names were Hebrew names. It could be they weren't Hebrew names. I have no clue. Doesn't really make a difference. The point is that the method of signing is different. And now you have two divorces, right, side by side on a page, and the witness is signed. So Reuven signs Reuven ben Yaakov. Also, if he signs Reuven and then ben Yaakov, or he signs Reuven ben and then Yaakov. Got to that in the Gemara. This is a lot about signing this Mishnah. So you have if you look at the picture, it's actually not a good picture. The first scenario of the Mishnah is as follows. Let's just see the Mishnah. Okay. You have two witnesses, two documents, two divorces side by side. Two Jewish witnesses sign on the first document, and the end of their signatures on the second document, because they're side by side. And two Greek witnesses sign their name. They sign from one document to the other document. The one where the witnesses are signed in line is kosher. So the first document, if let's say they sign two witnesses that are Ivrim, so Reuven ben signed first, and then let's say Shimon, Moshe, ben Amram signed afterwards, that would be kosher. First document, because you have two witnesses signing under it. And then the Greeks, their names are signed backwards, but that's fine because the first document is the one that we're trying to make kosher. And that would be kosher. Why the second document is not kosher? What about the fact that two Greek people signed the second document? Because they send their names, let's say Shimon ben Yaakov, which actually means Yaakov signed the second document, the left side, and then Yosef ben Shimon, right? Shimon signed the second document, the son of Yosef. We'll get to the Gemara. It turns out actually that they're both kosher. Not like the Mishnah. The reason why the Mishnah says they're not kosher is because we're afraid of Gundulus. Gundulus means that we're concerned here that we don't know, maybe somebody made a mistake. So in other words, the people that signed Hebrew, the people that signed Greek should have signed their names in the Hebrew fashion. So actually, Yosef ben Shimon his name is actually Yosef, not Shimon. And therefore, the first document is kosher because it has at least two kosher Ivrim, regular signatures, and then two Yevanim that may have signed there also because they may have signed the wrong way. The second document is not kosher, but if we know that they all signed properly, actually both documents are kosher. The first document has Reuven and Shimon signing. The second document has Reuven, let's say, and Moshe. The second document has Shimon, Yosef ben Shimon, and Naphtali ben Yaakov ben Naphtali. Okay. 1 second. Eirechad Ivri ve'eirechad Yevani. Eirechad Ivri ve'eirechad Yevani. Ba mitachas tachaseh shnayim psulim. So if you look at the picture you have on the side of the page, the Mars, that's the picture. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, so our school has both pictures. If you look in hold on, we are. Yeah. So if you look at 25 and the 25 and 26 is what we just spoke about, right? Where you have Reuven and Kahas are signed properly on the right side, right-hand get, and the people whose actual name is Shimon and Naphtali have signed accurately on the left side get, because they're signing the Greek method. And really they both should be kosher. We'll see in the Gemara, maybe they are both kosher. The only concern here is that maybe actually Shimon and Naphtali signed incorrectly. Their names aren't even Shimon and Naphtali, their names are Yosef and Yachzel. And they signed the correct Hebrew way. So therefore only the first document, the right-hand side, is kosher and not the left-hand side. The second scenario is footnote 29 here. A little complicated here. So Reuven signed correctly on the right-hand get. Yosef and Shimon actually signed his name, if he signed it the correct way, also on the right-hand get. Kahas signed the left-hand get, and Naphtali signed the left-hand get as well. They're both invalid. Why are they invalid? The Gemara says because we're concerned that everybody made mistakes here. And we don't know who made the mistakes, if it was the Hebrew signatures or the Greek signatures. So it might be that one document has 3 signatures and the other one has 1. And it might be that it's the other document for each one. So for example, it could be Reuben's signature is the right-hand side. Yosef signed correctly in Hebrew. Kahas signed Yosef signed incorrectly as the Greek. Kahas signed correctly as the Hebrew. And Naphtali signed correctly as the Greek. And therefore the left-hand side has 3 witnesses. Or it could be that Reuben signed correctly as a Hebrew. Shimon signed correctly as a Greek. Kahas signed incorrectly as a Hebrew, and Naphtali doesn't make a difference. Naphtali could have signed correctly, or his name could be Yachzel, and he signed correctly as well. So then you'd have 3 or 4 on the first document and none on the second document. And we don't know exactly what happened. So therefore, puzzle, it's not kosher. Okay, let's stop here.